A bit over a year ago, I made a video response to CrowbCat's TF2 2007 and now, because I felt like his comparisons were a little unfair and I wanted to add my 2 cents. However, a lot of people weren't very happy with it, myself included, because I could have voiced my opinion a little better, I think. Overall, it felt rushed, even though it really wasn't. Okay, it was. A little, but not entirely. If you haven't seen either of them, then I'd advise you take a look at both of them, otherwise this video won't really make much sense. It's also important that you look at CrowbCat's video individually and make up your own mind about it. Well, now I've decided to revisit my old video to see if CrowbCat's video still holds up 1 year later, or if things changed in that year, as well as seeing if my own opinion changed about it. Just a heads up, I still think his usage of foreboding and ominous TF2 tracks deliberately primed viewers into thinking the game has gotten worse than it did. The question I had in the old video was whether or not the comparisons were really fair. It didn't really make much sense and I never formally answered it, plus I don't even really know how. So instead I shall be asking a new question, and that is if the changes that were made to the game were for the worse, for the better, or a bit of both. And then at the end I'll go through everything and try to answer that question, as well as seeing what ended up getting changed over the course of the last year and what it means for the future. You know, generic video analysis stuff. Alright, let's just go before you and I fall asleep. We can see that the game has way more options nowadays, though I think it should be even more. We really didn't get many more graphical options, which is a real shame, as the ones I suggested could have really helped certain players. What we did receive, however, were RGB sliders for combat text, so yay? It's not enough though, we still need more. So while this change isn't worse, it wasn't as big of an improvement as it could have been. The new model being lower is a good thing, because it doesn't obstruct as much of the screen as it did before. The minigun being lower is both a good and a bad thing. Good because it doesn't block as much of the screen, bad because you can't really see the gun spinning much anymore. In my opinion, it's neither an overly positive or negative change. The removal of the shiny lighting on the metal was a good idea in my opinion, because no metal textures or objects in the game shine to the same degree, making it look more consistent and much nicer. The lighting change, and this applies to all lighting changes to weapons, is still preference in my opinion. I still think the new lighting fits the other metal textures and lighting in the game better, and that the old one is too dark. But if you prefer that one, that's fine too. Someone said that the old lighting helped make the weapon stand out from the world much more, but I don't think it's that much of a difference, to be honest. The most obvious change is that the new lighting has much flatter reflections, whereas the old one highlighted a lot of imperfections on the surface of the weapon. This was done because of changes to light warps meant to accommodate skins. Apparently, non-stock weapons still use the old light warps, yet even though there's non-stock weapon skins, they didn't change that. Maybe the new lighting should only apply to weapons with skins, but again, preference. I wouldn't mind it that much though. The new flamethrower also has fewer details, which I didn't actually notice the first time around. Kinda shows how minuscule they are, or rather how little I use the stock flamethrower. I will admit the old details looked nicer and I would like to see them again. The strap holding the propane tank is also much blockier on the new version. There's actually an entire history behind these changes, but that's for another video. The old flamethrower looked way too dark to me, and the new one being less shiny is good in my opinion. But again, it is preference. But I have to say that the textures of the new one are of a much higher quality. I actually have no idea what I meant by that. I think I meant to say higher resolutions, which is actually true. Like the lighting, I consider preference. It has fewer details and reflections, but a much nicer flame at the front and is more consistent with other metal textures. It also appears overall less dark, and not only when you're already standing in the light. I can't say which one I prefer, honestly. Side note, the lighting in TF2 is really messed up these days, with cosmetics, weapons and even body parts randomly going dark at times, with others staying bright. They really gotta fix that. This one isn't about lighting again, which is, as I've said, preference, but I think it looks not as brash. I actually changed my opinion. I prefer the old scattergun as it's not that bright. I think there needs to be a middle ground between dark and bright, which a new flamethrower pulls off much better than the scattergun. It might also have something to do with the lighting on the balcony, however. Like the flamethrower, I think it's neither good nor bad, just preference. The new medigun looks definitely way less comically huge in first person, and that is much nicer to me. Now it's the other way around for me, with the old one being too bright. Also, the muzzle is not only smaller, but also less blocky, and this screw is tinier. Again, preference. Again, in the new version we can see more detailed textures, which is a good change. Okay, turns out I was wrong! The new minigun has fewer details, like the flat screws, these washed out ones, etc. But the old texture looks really low quality, which you can see on these slits and how it blurs together here. It doesn't help that the old lighting highlights all these imperfections on the texture. I suspect that Valve knew how bad it looked, which is also why they made the screws flatter to avoid blurry details. So while the texture is less detailed, the quality is an overall improvement. Still a thing? Yep, sucks.
For some reason the logo is missing here, which I don't think there's any excuse for that. That should definitely come back. I mean, where did it go?
Alright, am I the only one that thinks that if you compare changes in a video, you should fade back and forth between them? Because I had to pause this video multiple times to spot all the differences. Is the logo still missing though? Yep, has to come back. Still the same? Yep, inexcusable. I have to uninstall the game just for that one.
The new model doesn't break, but it definitely should. He's completely right about that. Valve, get in on that.
It breaks again! And the new sandwich also has bite marks again, which it didn't for the longest time. Hooray for science!
The new revolver is way less shiny, which looks much nicer, because the old one looked really weird with all these white rims on it. As with the minigun, the new reload is much better, because it doesn't block the screen as much and was actually demanded by the community.
I still think the old lighting looks weird. I know there's supposed to be imperfections on the gun, but they're way too white to me. The new one also fits much better with the other revolvers, such as the Enforcer and the L'Étranger, less so the Ambi. Does it spin though? No! Valve! I guess this one isn't really an improvement, because while the new reload doesn't block the screen as much, it doesn't spin and the lighting is just preference. For gameplay's sake, I'd prefer the new one, however. Gotta be able to see what you're shooting at.
The new glass is way too opaque and I think it should be way more transparent. The medic's hand holding the gun is also still messed up, which again is not excusable, and the cylinder should also spin in the new version.
Downgrade. It's still not that transparent, the cylinder only spins in first person and the hand is still messed up. Valve, please fix.
Okay, wow, the knife was huge in the old version and the new one is much more subtle and looks way less silly, which really fits Spy's character.
I feel like I have to explain this one. While TF2 is a cartoony game, it's usually not that over the top. Though that has changed over the years and this wouldn't really look out of place next to the pretty machete. So while it was in essence a positive change, it doesn't really matter anymore, to be honest.
This is a very valid complaint. The zappers should definitely still appear nowadays with an option to turn them off.
Do zappers fall off now? No! I don't know why they did it, to improve performance, as an oversight, or to not make them refill ammo. They should definitely re-add it though, with the option to disable them. Sadly, a downgrade. Shadows are still better though. Preference, bye.
The old one looks nicer, but it is a bit too realistic and detailed for TF2. I think it fits Half-Life or Left 4 Dead more. The new one is much more cartoony, but it could use more detail. But then again, how many maps even have water in them?
Apparently, if they didn't do this, it could have crashed computers. So in that regard, good change. Still, I would like to see some higher quality cartoony ripples.
Maybe this is just me, but I think the Scout looks much nicer nowadays, due to the lighting pronouncing his features more.
I still prefer the new lighting because it pronounces his features, but maybe tone it down a little bit. Yet, once again, preference. Though, what about the new glitch that for some reason doesn't load the animation, so characters stay frozen in place before snapping to the poses? Intense fixeroni, please.
The new one is much more consistent, but I think it should be again a mix. It should show grenades and remove them one at a time and then add new ones. So both versions are both wrong and right.
My old opinion hasn't changed. It should really load in the grenades and then shoot them out one after the other. Or at least not load all of them in the same chamber and maybe even reduce the amount of chambers to 4. I mean, there's fan-made mods that do that already. It's still mostly a positive and negative change though.
For some reason, the new sniper rifle doesn't have a muzzle flash anymore, and I just wonder, why? It looked nicer. The new one ejected the shell on the wrong side, and while the new one does eject it on the right side, it appears behind the rifle, and it should definitely appear the hole instead.
The new one has a muzzle flash. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the shell should also appear in front of the rifle, not behind it. A good change, but implemented poorly.
In the old TF2, sometimes it was really hard to notice tiny weapons on the floor like the revolver or the flare gun. The new ammo boxes, however, are much more noticeable, so this is a really nice change from a gameplay perspective.
Still better because of the more consistent physics and sizes. Plus, you now have the choice to swap out your weapon for one on the floor, which has more ammo or which fits the situation better. I don't know if it's actually better or worse, as there's not really any big tactical advantage to be gained from this and I can see its goal. Except for the medigun, I suppose. In my opinion, it's an improvement, however it requires more in-depth analysis. And yes, I'm serious about that.
With this one, I had issues at first noticing the difference. Apparently, the new one has less smoke, but I would call this another nitpick, like the spot on the wall. Because it's just on one map and at the same time it's not even all that noticeable.
I finally figured out what's going on here. That isn't smoke, it's steam. Steam from the steam clams we're having. Steam clams. Well, it doesn't really linger on the floor anymore, which is a shame. It should get re-added, but then again, it's just one map. It changed for the worse, but a tiny one at that. It does indeed look like it runs smoother without this theme though, so at least give us the option to disable effects like that.
Not having pain screams from fall damage anymore is a very good thing, because the old ones sounded really bad and didn't fit any of the classes, and everyone had the same screams, so that made it even worse.
You know, while the old scream never fit, I would have loved to have that in the game back then actually. And guess what? They added them with unique screams for all classes. Isn't that great? So while the old change was already good, this new one is even better.
Now, about the bad lighting on the maps. So, from what I've heard, that's only an issue on the very first maps of the game due to them having a different lighting system. Valve should definitely update the lighting on these old maps, but there's almost 100 maps in the game now, which are all designed around the new lighting system, so 90% of all the maps in the game don't even have these issues. This comparison, in my opinion, paints a very bad image of TF2. It might imply that all maps in the game have really awful lighting nowadays, when in reality it's just a few.
And finally, the lighting again. My opinion hasn't changed, they should update these maps again. But at the same time, there's still only some of many maps. And that concludes all the comparisons. So, were these changes for better, for worse, or both? Well, my opinion on them hasn't overall changed much. Since launch, a lot of these things have improved, like the VO models, the ammo boxes, etc. Other aspects like the map lighting and the zappers got worse. But honestly, most of them come down to preference in my opinion. People just perceive visuals differently, and they also have different tastes and expectations of what things should look like. But what actually changed between 2017 and 2018? Well, from the things that CrowbCat's showed in the video, only the bottle breaking again and the pain screams. That's not many, which is very unfortunate. I was hoping they'd improve much more. But let's not forget that these are only things that were present since launch. And the video didn't even show any of the weapon balances, the glass tweaks, map adjustments, etc. Maybe they'll update things, like the revolver and the syringe gun spinning in the future. After all, if they add things that no one really demanded, like the screams, then why not? Furthermore, none of the changes in this video affect the gameplay substantially, except for maybe the ammo boxes and the fall damage screams. And even then, they're very minuscule. So if there's no tactical advantage to be gained, such as darker map lighting making player models be able to hide in the shadows much easier, then it really doesn't matter. I've learned to be more open toward CrowbCat's video. I don't consider it nitpicky or necessarily biased anymore, just very limited. It mostly only focuses on graphical changes instead of gameplay. Graphical changes that only affect launch content at that. But not all the things that got added afterwards, like maps, game modes, weapons, cosmetics, etc. So even if all the changes in this video were literally all downgrades, it would still only be a small drop on a hot stone. I'm not excusing them, I am just saying that the game has improved so much because of all that new content. So basically, just my opinion from the old video. Hopefully the TF team will update some of these downgrades in the future. Though right now they seem to be focusing on other, arguably more important matters such as competitive and weapon rebalances. Because those increase the actual longevity of the game, which graphics don't really. Graphics aren't unnecessary, but there's a good reason why I prefer a game from 1993 to its remake from 2016. And that's because the gameplay is more fun to me. And that's very important to remember while analyzing something. How does it matter in the grand scheme of things? Is it really that bad when I compare it to everything else? And let's be honest guys, are random crits really that bad? Yes they are, to hell with them, remove them from the bloody game, Valve already, please, I beg you! Well, that concludes this video. I'd like to thank my patrons, specifically One True Ma, Alexis Chavez, Dr. TNT, Frozen Spaghetti, Mac Cannabis, Oleg Andrev, Ren Marty, Xavier, Zachary Leclerc, and as always, Xenomite. Thanks for your support, it really means a lot. Oh, and by the way, I'm still working on Hotline Fortress, so don't worry. And if you want to support me too, you can also become a patron, subscribe to my channel, like my videos, or just watch them. Anything is appreciated. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, have a wonderful day, and goodbye.